Hello world, how you doing? My name is Promise Benson, and this is my girlfriend, my baby girl, my wife, Annabel Benson. And we just thought to document this because we know that there may be people who are currently in the situation we were. And I just hope that what we have to say here, you pick one or two things from it, and that will encourage you in your own journey. We got married in 2015, March 7th to be precise, 2015, and it was a glorious experience. That whole wedding story gave us an indication that God wanted us to be in this union. It was a wedding of nothing short of a miracle. A wedding where we didn't have to spend a kobo of our money. People just fell in love with our union and basically paid for everything. When I mean everything, I mean everything. Wedding gown, suits, event hall, food, souvenirs, hotels, transportation, like everything. And it was like a dream. I remember the day we arrived at our wedding venue, I didn't believe it was my wedding, because wow, I couldn't believe it. Somebody took care of the decoration and just went overboard to blow our minds. And so with that kind of experience, it was basically going to be easy for every other thing to follow. That was an indication that God was in this union. But little did we know that God was writing a different story, because after that whole wedding, everything changed basically. And so we were introduced to a new journey entirely, one that we did not plan for, one that we did not expect. But they say time heals all things. But I think that sometimes time also tests you. Time waited with us. We had to wait not 9 days, not 9 weeks, not even 9 months, but 9 years. And you can imagine all of the things that happened in between. So we'll just share a bit of our story with you, and we're trusting that it will heal somebody, it will ignite faith in somebody, it will restore hope in somebody, and above all, it will cause somebody not to give up on God. Somebody will see God from a fresh perspective, for you to know that delay is not denial. Sometimes waiting does not mean a waste of time. God might just be building up something in the wait, but you can never tell. So this is our story. I think my wife will take it over from here.
Okay, just like my husband said, our wedding was nothing short of a miracle. Like, sincerely speaking, God blew our minds. Like, if I'll use another term, God exceeded our expectations. Everything was paid for. Everyone rallied around us. Everyone wanted to do something for us. I remember as little as my hair. I went to the salon to make my hair, and as I was there, a lady was there, and she's like, "Are you getting married?" And I said, "Yes." I don't know her before. She doesn't know me before. And she's like, "I'm just led to pay for your hair and your nails." Like, God paid for everything, down to the tiniest details of our wedding, down to my bouquet, down to my shoes, everything. So naturally, we just expected that this was a miraculous wedding and God's hand was in it and nothing was going to go wrong, and this part of the world is expected that when a couple gets married, 9 months, 1 year, 6 months, children will be running around the house. But that wasn't our story. It was towards the end of 2015. A senior friend of ours, his wife actually, called my husband's attention, and she's like, "Promise, how far? I've been watching your wife from March. This is December. I thought by now, Belek, something would have come out, something would have become big and all of that." And my husband is like, he doesn't think there's anything wrong. And she said, no. Are you guys active? And we're like, yes. When my husband told her, yes, we're very active. And she said, no, something might be wrong. But just to rule out that option of something being wrong or not, she recommended a doctor to us and said, okay, this guy is actually very good. She has a couple of friends and family that have used him. Now, why don't we give him a try just to check if everything is okay? That she's not saying anything is wrong, but just to check if everything is okay, basically. And we went there. That was the beginning of our journey with doctors. But before, I would like to mention that before we started this journey of doctors, I actually told my husband that I don't want anything to do with doctors. You know, I had lost my dad in 2009, and I know what we went through with doctors. That was actually what made me say that I didn't want the journey with doctors. But he's like, no, this is just to check if everything is okay, basically. And then we started. And then he did his tests, and he said everything was okay. But then there's something called pouch of Douglas. That my own pouch of Douglas wasn't properly positioned. Now the inner skin is where the outer skin is supposed to be, and the outer skin is where the inner skin is supposed to be in the womb. Yes, that was the first doctor. And he said, but okay, so how do we correct this? And he's like, he'll just place me on fertility drugs and fertility medication, and it's nothing serious. Just that some people are born that way, some people are not born that way. That was the first time I was hearing something like that in my life. And he placed me on fertility drugs, and that was how the journey started. I took the first fertility drug. I might not necessarily mention their names, just not to discredit any medication, but I took the first, and for the first time, my period was delayed by like 1 week and a few days. So we're happy. Oh my God, we're pregnant. And on a particular day after about a week, I started bleeding. If I already thought I was pregnant, my husband was already pampering me. I was already eating fruits like a pregnant. I was even doing exercise. All manner. Just, she's already pregnant. This was like after, thank God, this doctor is our answered prayer. And one day on a certain Monday morning, I can never forget, I started bleeding. And, the first thing, I reached out to my sister-in-law, and she's like, no, just lie down one place, raise your legs. A miscarriage is about to happen. But remember, we're not even gone to the hospital to know whether we're pregnant or not. We just had a delay of 1 week. And I was just, even with my legs raised, I was bleeding out. And I was like, no, we need to get to the hospital. And we got to the hospital. The doctor ran his tests and said there was never really a baby there. The second journey started. And then we're like, okay, this doctor didn't give us what we wanted. We were taking this medication for like, I think 3 months or 4 months. And this was the result. It led us into something that we had never encountered before. So let's try another doctor. Because at this point, family members, friends, they were recommending doctors to us because it's natural. There was just that concern that, okay, what's up? What's happening? And then we saw another doctor. And this doctor took us through a series of tests. I need to mention that these tests are usually not cheap. Most times you spend money in hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions, just to get a test done because you're expecting a child. And then the second doctor goes, okay, I have my private practice and I have a public practice. In my private practice, if you come to my private practice, you're going to spend a lot of money. But since you guys are just a young couple, because we're just starting out our lives then, come to my public practice and I'll go to this place and I'll sit down for 3 hours, waiting on a man to check on me, to know whether I'm able to have children or not. And then you're already there, Because most times, usually the ladies that go in, they don't allow the men come in. So my husband usually with the car, we are waiting. He will call me there. I'll be like, I'm waiting for the doctor. And then finally, we're able to see this doctor. And when we saw him, he's like, that the other doctor just played with me. This was his words. Now, why did he give me the medication? That this was there's just a tiny little blockage on the entrance of the womb that is just blocking the baby, sperm from getting in. And no, he knows what to do. And we're like, oh, praise God. Our answer is here. And we're like, what's the solution? And he said, no medication, that he will do a surgery. He said a very minimal surgery just to clear out the blockage, and I'll move. What caused the blockage? He doesn't know, but he wants to clear it out. And I remember that evening we went, and the thing is, for every time a doctor gives us a report, there's this hope that we have. There's this hope that we have that once this is done, our solution is coming next. So we went for the surgery and did the surgery, waited 1 month, waited 2 months, waited 3 months, waited
All the way to 6 months.
6 months, and nothing still. And hopes dashed again. And then a friend of ours introduced us again to another doctor. We went there. Oh, but our spirit just didn't carry the place. We just looked at the hospital, and I'm like, my husband and I just looked at each other and we're like, yeah, let's go. Let's leave this place. And then our family too got involved. My mom, his family. It wasn't from a place of pressure. It was from a place of concern, you know. At this point, I'd just like to thank God for the kind of in-laws God gave me, because I know that most families would put you under so much pressure, you know, judging from the part of the world we're from, judging from the tribe we're from, you know, but somehow they were super supportive. And then my mom recommended a doctor all the way in Enugu. We actually stay in Abuja, but this doctor was recommended to us in Enugu. And, you know, the pressure came, where can people travel? Where would you be able to come and see this doctor? This man is the best of the best. You know, people travel from far and wide to come and see him, from US, UK, Canada. Just come down and, you know, leave work, whatever it is you're doing, shut it down and come down. Children are more important at this point. And we planned a trip and we went down to the east, because we got a lot of calls and recommendation of doctors from the east. And went down to see this doctor in the east. And when we got there, the guy actually looked very, very experienced, you know, and in fact, on his walls, you could see a good number of certificates. You know, he was even telling us about them. He's a member of this, member of that, member of this. In fact, he told us that he has come to the end of assisted reproduction medicine, that there's nothing again they want to know in that aspect of medicine that he doesn't know about. You know, that when he's done with us, if I don't take him in 3 months, that's in fact we should come and destroy his certificates on his wall. That was how certain he was of himself. And then he went in, ran our normal tests, right? And then he recommended some medication, gave us some other recommendations, and said if in 3 months I don't get pregnant, that's probably his name is not his name.
And I remember calling him after 4 months with no results, and I called him, and so he was like, "Are you sure you took the medication the way I prescribed them?" I said, "Exactly the way you prescribed them." And I said, "No, there has to be a mistake somewhere." I said, "Okay, it's fine. If you think there's a mistake somewhere, please re-prescribe it again, so that this time I will ensure that we follow the pattern." And he did, but there was nothing to show for it, basically. And yes, and that goes to show that sometimes man will be man, God will be God. You know, but he was so certain, and his boast was from his accumulated knowledge, the things that, you know, he had studied. But there's a hand that is beyond science. There's a hand that's and our story comes, you know, into play to show that there's actually a hand that is beyond. And I don't even know how we ended with the man. We're not getting any results. 8 months into line, 9 months, we just knew it, that it was just about the money. He has tried his best, but our solution was not in his hand. So we moved on to the next doctor.
So I think the next doctor was in Owerri. We got this recommendation as well. So, but the funny thing about this one was, they said when you get pregnant, this baby will not show in any other scan. It will only show in their own scan. And then when it's time to deliver, you can't have this baby in any other hospital. You can only have this baby in their own hospital. And then that the baby would you'll be put into you'll be deeply asleep, and your spouse cannot be in the room. All you know is that at the end of everything, you're coming out with the cry of a baby. It now showed us people that had done the same thing. See this person's baby, see that person's baby, you know. So this particular morning, we had a conversation at night. So we're planning to go in the morning, because they say you must get there by 5 a.m. to get a number, so that if not 2 days, you have not even seen them, you know. And at night, all we were sleeping. This wasn't Owerri. I told my husband that, no, now, this doesn't make sense. Like, how exactly do I get pregnant and no other scan can see the baby? Only their scan. Are you sure these people are not into some form of crime or something? Like, what exactly is going on that I wasn't going to go? I think you're going to tell me the same thing, but he didn't want to kill my spirit because we're on a quest for something. Every woman hopes to carry their own child, so he didn't want to. And I said, no, if you're not in agreement with it, and I'm not in agreement with it, then we go nowhere. So 4 a.m., the person was supposed to take us, woke us up, and we're like, we're not going again. And then the conversation started again, and my husband said, no, if you can show me 1 or 2 people that did this thing, I will pay for a DNA test for them. If you can prove to me that these children actually belong to these people, then why not? I'll follow you. Oh, John, this looks blind, entirely blind, And that's how we didn't go for that. We traveled back to Abuja.
And once we came back to Abuja, in our very estate, the way God will have it, in our very estate, there was another couple that they were trusting God, and somehow the conversation started, and we told them that we just came back from Owerri, and the girl was shocked because she had gone to the same place, she had done the same thing. In fact, she was carrying the idea that she was pregnant. And if you see her, you will know that because all of the pregnancy signs and features were in her body, basically. So I turned to my wife, I'm like, see person from the same place. She now said, but her doctor is telling her that her senses are not okay. That how can she claim she's pregnant? And every time they check her, they are not seeing any pregnancy. And she will tell them that I'm pregnant, I'm vomiting. Are you not seeing my body? See, yeah, they'll say yes, but you are not pregnant, So I said, your doctor was saying that to you? She said yes. I said, but let's even use common sense because I've never heard it before. How can you be pregnant and no other machine would detect your pregnancy except the same people in Owerri? I think that was where the thing dawned on her that, so she called the people in Owerri and they said, Madam, we told you that this way, this baby is not lying down the regular way, the baby is standing. That so they have the machine to detect it and to see it, but no other hospital. So I guess that was when the girl's eyes opened. So I contacted a brother of mine who was in the medical field, and immediately I told him. He screamed. He said, that is a cartel, that is scam. So don't fall for that. He started explaining what they do. Yes, I think that's what he called it, cryptic. They will inject you with drugs that enhances all of the pregnancy hormones, giving you the feeling that you are pregnant. That what they usually do. In fact, he didn't know that they told us we had to come back there for the delivery. That what they will normally do is to ask you to come back there for the delivery, so that at that point they either sedate you to sleep and they probably hand you over somebody's child. That's it's a cartel. That's where everybody's eyes cleared, and that girl finally discovered that she wasn't pregnant. But by this time we had spent money, we had traveled, we had done, all manner, and so we got introduced to another doctor.
So we went to this doctor. He looks quite hopeful as well, because like I said, every doctor came with their own hope. Always look at it like, if I will start with discrediting the work of the former doctor, that why did this guy do like this? No.
You should have done this instead of this.
Let me know this. So when he came, we told him our history, and he's like, no, that these people have been wasting our time, and then he started the journey. Another series of tests again, and when he was done,
then the IUI.
He said, this is easy, there's nothing wrong with the both of you, but just because we've been waiting and just because we've been trying, can we try artificial insemination? Let's try artificial insemination. And hopefully again, if I remember the day we were carrying the stuff, and he was like, make sure you get here in less than 10 minutes. We're carrying as though we're carrying the ark of God or something, because we're carrying it so preciously. Like, make sure you get here in 10 minutes. And then we got there, all hope. I remember an encounter I had in that particular theater of that hospital. I was literally between life and death. I was in an injection that, in fact, that injection took me out of this world, more like. And I was awake, but I was screaming. I was feeling pain, and I was feeling like I was already out of this world, and I was screaming. My husband was not allowed to call me, but he was hearing me scream from outside. I was screaming, I am not alive anymore. That was all I dare myself say. I'm not alive anymore. And the doctor was confused. His other doctor was confused. The nurses were confused. They had never had that kind of reaction before whilst doing that kind of thing. And somehow they were able to recall me back and all of that. They did their social examination, told us what to do, how to act, what to do in the next 2 weeks, and our hopes were up. Because normally the result comes out in 2 weeks. So the first week, second week, pampered myself, took the right food, everything, and 40 days later, went for the tests, and they said, mate.
So when we got the result of that particular IUI that it had failed, the doctor wanted us to do one more try. So after about 3 months, we had to do another try. It was on this second try that obviously failed again. They discovered that there was fibroid. And the funny thing was, before now, from when this whole journey started, there was no fibroid anywhere. Basically, there was. So when this was already in 2021, early 2021, when they said okay that he thinks it's a fibroid that is stopping, the pregnancy from occurring. I said, okay, what do we need to do? Said we needed to remove the fibroid. But then I remember that I had a friend of mine who just had a baby at that time, and the wife had heavy fibroid, and they had a baby with fibroid. So I asked the doctor, are you saying that fibroid can stop pregnancy from happening? He said, yes, in many cases, it depends on the position. I said, okay, fine. Let's take out the fibroid. So we're referred to another hospital, Asokoro General Hospital, and we agreed to it because we kind of have somebody in there who told us that sometimes people just neglect these hospitals, but they are really good, and the doctors are professionals, and so we dived in, and that was where the journey to fibroid started.
And then I remember the evening before the surgery, you know how doctors will come to prep you before a surgery. So a group of about 8 doctors, that particular point, my husband was running around to make the payments and everything for the surgery. So a group of about 8 specialists came to my room, and they're like, madam, we've seen your case file. And one doctor there just said, from what I'm seeing, if we go in there tomorrow, we might take out your womb. Direct, that's how he just told me. And
I think that was something.
This was the first thing he said, that he would take out my womb. And I now looked, I said, God forbid. And he's been the Christian that I am. I rejected him immediately. I said, God forbid. And he said, no, because if he goes in there and his endometriosis, he would take out the womb so that I don't die. That was what he said. And I said, God forbid, my womb will not be taken out. And then I saw the chief doctor and I begged him. I said, so whatever it is, please do not touch my womb. So the other guy was like, no, that is science. If they go in, that they don't know what they'll see till they go in, because they can only do a scan on the surface. That when they open you up, that's when they will now see what they are actually doing, and the fear sets in immediately. And I'm like, what if they take out? So imagine hearing that a night before the surgery, and then I was already afraid. And then when my husband came, I told him, and he said, hope I rejected the man. And I said immediately, I said they will not take out your womb. So. But of course, there was just that little atom of fear, and then I went in. That was like my first major surgery on this journey. Or other ones I had done a little, minimal procedures. Or this was major. When you're asking the doctor, what are the risks of this surgery? What is involved? And they tell you 50-50. whatever it is, 50-50, depending on the position of the fibroid that you remember was never even there in the first place. If I was one of the doctors that told us that some of the fertility medication we are taking over time was what the fibroid fed on and now came out. I went in for this surgery as early as 7 a.m. I remember that day my husband had a live recording, and he was going to cancel the live recording, but I just begged him. I said, don't worry, I'll be fine. I'll be okay. I spoke to 1 or 2 of his friends. I said, please just help me stand by him. Don't let him worry too much about me. Even though I heard that immediately I was wheeled in, he started crying. I had never seen my husband cry before then. But when I got in, the theater alone was scary. And I'm like, then I remembered what that doctor told me, that we might take out your womb. So the first question I asked them was, please, because I took note of his name. And I said, please, is this man going to be among the team of... and they said, no, he got a call this morning that he will not be part of the team. And I said, oh, thank God. So I was sedated, but I was still awake, basically. So I could hear everything that was happening, even though I couldn't feel pain or feel anything, basically. So in the course of the surgery, I was hearing the conversation of the doctors. Oh, the thing is quite inside. Oh, it's close to the womb. But I remember the voice of one of the doctors that said, please, remember this woman said, whatever it is, don't take out my womb. That was the voice that God used. Because they were already ready to go with the easy way out. Like, okay, whatever it is, let this thing not stress us. Let's just take out the womb and let this woman survive and let her be alive. But somehow, as the doctor mentioned, I remember this woman said, don't take out her womb. And then went on and on.
And as God will have it, the surgery was done and the recovery was amazing. It was fast. In fact, by the following morning when they came to check on her, they found my wife already standing. And the doctor was saying, where's the woman that had surgery yesterday? And I said, that's her standing. The man was like, wow, it's amazing. And so after that whole process, when we went back for review, I remember what the man said to me. The man said, everywhere is cleared now. Please go, enjoy, and have your children. So we went, and after so many tries, nothing happened. And so we went back to the doctor who had referred us to this hospital and he said, at this point, you know what? Let's dive into IVF. We were introduced to IVF. It was a new concept to us, basically. Before now, we had thought that once you venture into IVF, you're putting God out of the equation. But, we were introduced to this doctor, and after explaining what the concept was, we agreed to do it. I had made the first payment, and then the procedure started. Halfway into the procedure, that was another miracle that God did. God did a miracle that blew everybody's mind, including the doctor. I think during the injection, they discovered that one part of the fallopian tube was producing egg, and the other one did not produce any egg. Ovary, sorry, yes. And so the doctor said, we can cancel. This was on day 7. I said, we can't cancel, sir. Can we just give it another try? He said, okay, come back 2 days time. Went back on the 9th day.
What year was it?
This was 2021, some late into 2021. Yes. So he said come back on the 9th day. We went back on the 9th day and nothing changed. It was the same thing. The left ovaries produced egg, the right did not produce egg. So the man said, let's cancel and start the next cycle. So in my head, they were going to refund back the money to me.
Or use it for the next cycle.
So So I told the man, so are you giving me back money or depositing the money for the next cycle? And the man said, no, that injections have been given, treatment had gone in, so that we'll do a deduction of what we have done, and whatever is left is what we're going to give to you. And so I was waiting for them to do the calculation. When I heard the amount they were going to refund back to me, I said, God forbid. I told my wife, I said, see, we'll continue with this thing. Let it be that we went to the end and it didn't work than stopping halfway and I'm losing this amount of money. So I just told the man, I wasn't trying to exercise faith or anything. I just told the man, please, can you give us more time? Let's go home and pray and come back. And the man said, no, that once it's above 9 days, it's already a problem medically. I said, please, sir. This was on a Friday. I said, let's come back on Monday, and see. So we went home that day. We kept praying and kept praying. I remember I went to church and pastor was preaching and he made a particular statement. And he says, the proof that you are blessed is that everything increases. I catched that word and I took it as my word. And I told my wife that, are we blessed people? She said, yes. I said, that means this thing will increase. And to my shock, when we went back on Monday, the right ovaries that did not produce any egg had produced 4 eggs that were mature. The doctor could not believe it. In fact, that was where my song, No Arguments, that was where that song came from. You understand? Because that morning I was in my car driving, waiting to hear from my wife, and I was just praying silently, please come through for me, God, help us. We can't. It was basically the money for me. The whole prayer was centered on, I can't lose this money, help me, just like that. And I heard in my car, what do you call me? It felt like somebody was sitting with me in the car. What do you call me? I said, healer. He said, that's what you call me, that's what I am. And so that was what bettered that song. When I heard that the right ovaries had produced 4 eggs, I couldn't believe it. The doctor was like, this is nothing short of a miracle. So with that in mind, we expected that the IVF is a success already. And so after the whole process, the results, negative.
If I remember that the day I did my procedure, were 3 women that did our procedure on that particular day. Sorry to cut you. And the other 2 women did their test in the morning, and theirs was positive because we used to chat. So the first one had gone for her tests, chatted me positive. The second one had gone for her test, chatted me positive. So I was to go for my test around noon. So I was already very expectant because we're 3 of us that did everything the same. They did everything together. If you really know how IVF works, and then I went there, and then after the tests, the nurses didn't give my result immediately. The first thing they said was, the doctor wants to see you. And I tell a lot of people's faces that we see that they were downcast, and that was negative. That was the first negative that we had from IVF, basically.
So well, with the news of negative, there was nothing else to do. We went back to the doctor who had introduced us into IVF, who told us to try IVF, and we told him, and he said, you can't give up, try again. This time, he referred us to another doctor. And so when I got to this doctor, I fell in love with the place. I fell in love with the man's spirit. He was so positive. He was like, Madam, I will not give up on you until we have your baby. So
he asked for the names of our children.
We told, he asked for the name of the child. We said not child, we said 3 of them. We called their names. So from that point, the guy started calling my wife by that name, Mommy 3Js, But we tried the second IVF, failed. Tried the third IVF, failed. Tried the 4th IVF, and they said, this one worked. It was positive. So we're so excited. Finally, it works. And
20.
this was 2023, yes.
So the first IVF was actually a success. So imagine after, so this was 2023.
Everyone was so happy.
8 years after we had gotten married, because we got married in 2015. So this was like, finally God has answered. After all the procedures, after all the medication, after everything, here it is, here is the baby. So I remember the doctor scheduling me for a scan, a 6-week scan and a 9-week scan, which is their usual procedure. And then we went for the 6-week scan, and everything was okay at the 6-week scan. So they were like, oh, praise God, come back for the 9-week scan. So we went for the 9th week scan. Doctor started on the scan machine and started scanning. And like I said earlier, I would usually look at the doctor's faces to know how things are faring. And the doctor looked at me, he looked at the scan, and his face wasn't pleasant at all. So I was in my mind, I'm like, I didn't think anything would go wrong, so I was just looking at him. And then he asked me, are you still feeling pregnancy symptoms? And I said, very well. Even down to this morning, I still feel, even up till now, I still feel pregnancy symptoms. And he's like, this is strange. There is a sac, but there is no baby inside. And I was like, I've never heard that before. And then he called it a name. He called it blighted ovum. Now, I want to say something a little bit about how God works with us. Somehow, God prepared us for this journey without us knowing. In December, a friend of my sister's, my elder sister, had reached out to my elder sister to tell her that she went to the hospital. She was pregnant, and she went to the hospital to do a scan, and they told her that there's a sac, but there's no baby inside. This was way before I became pregnant. So my sister was like, she had never heard of that. Let her reach out to her younger sister that is usually very good with Google and stuff. So we researched and we Googled, and that was the first time I had actually heard that anything like that existed. Apparently, it was something that was common, I'm like, okay. So when this happened, my mind just flashed back to that research I had done. And I'm like, okay, was this why God probably made me do this research then? So that it's not entirely strange to me. Because the thing was, it's a strange thing to say that there's a sac and there's no baby. But then, like they said, the doctor is a believer and he's a very hopeful person. He said, let's not give up. This is what I'm saying today. But can you come back in 3 days' time? Let's just check. Peradventure, in his words, he said, peradventure maybe he's hiding. Peradventure maybe he doesn't want to show. But that from what he's seeing, he's not seeing a baby, but he's seeing a growing sac. And I went back that day because I attended the scan alone that day, because normally it's usually the women that they will ask for. I attended the scan alone that day, got home, told my husband about it, and we both couldn't understand what that was. How do you have a sac and you don't have a baby in the sac? And then 3 days later, we went back to the hospital, and the doctor is like, you know what? This pregnancy is not progressing. Let's take out this child. Let's take out whatever it is growing in there. And I said, take out something that's we had waited 8 years for, And he said, this pregnancy actually ended in a miscarriage. So we need to flush it out. We needed to evacuate it. I think that's when I grew for the first time, all of this, I'd had moments of breaking. I had moments of feeling down. But this was the first time I literally broke, because I had been there for 8 years. And I felt that we had been patient enough. And then pregnancy happens. And then I felt like a child that you give a sweet to. And then you collect it right back from the child immediately. And we were totally broken that period. The doctors were calling, come for evacuation. We told ourselves, we agreed amongst ourselves that we will not, I even told the doctor that we will not be a party to evacuating our child. If God knows he doesn't want this child to stay, or this pregnancy to stay, then I should bleed out naturally. I will not take any medication, and I will not come for any evacuation. Every day, just would call, have you done it? Have you gone for this? Have you gone for that? And then after we said that, one day we just said the prayer, like, Father, we prayed, we held onto the horns of the altar, we believed, we did everything we could do as humans. And then we told God, if you really know that this is not the one that will stay, then just take this child out on your own. And it was really painful, because I remember that this particular meeting started on a particular day when my husband was preaching on the altar, and then he was in front, he was preaching on faith, and he was vibrating on faith that evening. And I was at the back, and I said to bleed out. I said to bleed out gradually. And I was trying to signal him that I'm bleeding. And he told me that I was even gingering the preaching. So he was going on and firing on. I was bleeding out. We didn't know that God prepared that message for our own faith, basically. And I started bleeding out. And after the message, he came back. He came to the back to meet me. And he said, "Babe, what's up?" And I said, "Babe, we're losing this child." And that was how we lost that pregnancy. Painfully, because this was after waiting for 8 years. And this happened, and then we're losing it. So that was one of the most painful experiences I've had in my life.
So we had to ask the doctor what could be the cause of that, and he looked at me and said, I can't explain this. I'm a scientist that we are trained not to talk in a certain way, but if I take away science, I would say that this is probably village people, so but I didn't believe that. I told him, I said, well, I don't believe that anybody can stop a process that God has ordained. So one of the things I did that period, I went back to the Bible. I saw that scripture in Genesis chapter 1, verse 28, and God blessed them and said, "Be fruitful, multiply, have lots of babies." I saw a translation that said, "Have lots of children." So what I was doing was to check if there was a counter word. I checked all through. Maybe when Noah and his children messed up, God got angry and reversed it. I saw that there was no reversal of that promise that was given in Genesis chapter 1, verse 28. So we moved on, and this happened around April 2023. We moved on. Gradually, my wife got back herself after so many attempts to get her back. Finally, she got back herself. And the funny thing was that in the midst of our grieving, we had a family, a lady, a friend of ours, that the woman went through miscarriage. And guess who the girl called? My wife. See what is happening to me. But she had no idea that we just came out of ours. And my wife was speaking to her like she had 5 children, was encouraging her. And I'm like, God, would you look at this and overlook it? And the amazing thing was that doctor refused to give up on us. He said, let's go again. So after much pressure, we went again. And in August of the same year, my wife took in again. After the 5th IVF, she took in. The result was positive. In fact, this time I told myself that this one, nothing is happening to the affliction will not rise the second time. I remember that night we got back home after we heard the news that she was pregnant. I woke up at night and I'd gone into prayer. And, I prayed and prayed. I met my pastor. I told my pastor what was happening. He told me what he did during his time, because he also waited for about 3 years or so thereabout. He told me some of the things he did, and so I took it head on, and everything was fine until
The 9th again. So I was going to mention that the first pregnancy occurred on our anniversary day. If you remember, it was 14th of March 2023. It was our anniversary day. We had just come back from anniversary dinner. And during dinner, my husband just said, "Go and do a test. I think you're pregnant." And I'm like, after 8 years, it's hard day to be pregnant, But somehow, I just believed and went home, did the test, and I was pregnant. So it was very significant. So this second pregnancy now was happening around our husband's birthday. So it was more like, oh God, if this happened, it's going to be a birthday gift. And truly, I was pregnant. Went to the 6-week scan, everything was okay. Went to the ninth car, and as usual, the doctor's face changed. So at this point, I said, sir, I'm not letting up on this bed. He said, because he said she was looking, I said, whatever the report is, I must get a positive report before I leave bed. And he told me, fridge in his normal way. He said, not like anything is wrong, but I'm not really seeing heartbeats.
Yeah, that's the last activity he saw on this child was 2 days ago.
Do you have any for? Do you have anything? Anything happened 2 days ago? I said no. And he said, because that's the last activity. But it's fine. Can you come back in 3 days? Let's check again. So I'm leaving the hospital. No heartbeat on the baby. I had seen heartbeat on. The first one was black. Baby sac was growing. Baby was not growing. This one now, baby and sac are growing. No heartbeats, And we went home, prayed, trusted, held on, did everything we knew we could do. And then we went back to the hospital. And the very same way, doctor said, "It's going to be 3 days. Let's take this one out." I said, take this one out. The second time, in 1 year. And then at that point, I said, God, what do we do? We waited ACX, we waited ACX completely. And then in 1 year, 2 miscarriages, very painful miscarriages. What exactly is going on? Okay, let me mention at this point that throughout this racing season, God was actually with us. How was He with us? He was encouraging us in little way, every step of the way. Either by words of the prophecy, either by something, events. In fact, throughout the waiting period, God was blessing us in leaps and bounds. But we're looking like everything was happening except this child. I remember after the first miscarriage, I was dealing with a promotion at work. After the first miscarriage, and just to show you that God was with us all when He didn't just leave us. Every that prayer was really answered. Even prayers were not praying was really answered. But this particular one, and then the second miscarriage again, and the doctor said again, "Mommy, the 3 days we need to evacuate." And an agreement, he said again, that we will not be a party. And God knows that this one is not the one. Then this child should naturally bleed out like the first one. But this is the second one. We refused, so we held on. Past 9 to 10, 11th week. And it's a senior mommy of ours has to call us and like, "Annabel, promise, I love you guys so much. I know you're having faith, but it was what pain my mom. My mom was carrying a dead child in her womb, but one day she went to what they medically call septic shock, and she died. Take out this child. Don't worry. God knows what He's doing." So how do I explain it towards us? God knew what He was doing. First miscarriage, second miscarriage, all in 1 year. I think I was doctor's the year we lost my father-in-law, sick, August 2023. So it was all just a painful experience. But somehow God put salt in our mouths for people that were going through things like this. Like my mother mentioned career. I had a friend that had a miscarriage that didn't even know I had a miscarriage, but she called me and then God told her to call me. And I encouraged her somehow. I didn't tell her what I was going through or what I had gone through. I just told her the right words. I was able to make her come back from herself. Because I could understand because she had loved herself and well. And then when I was done talking to her, she was so thankful. She came back to herself. And then she maybe told us the younger son of mine. And she's like, "Please help me thank Annabel for helping me come out of this situation." And my other side, like, which of the Annabels? The same Annabel that was just in the situation that you were in. And she's like, "No, it's not possible that Annabel was okay." He said, "My son told her no. Annabel is currently undergoing a miscarriage as I'm talking to you." And the girl screamed. I said, "So how would I to tell her the right words to come out of it?" So that's how I would use also.
So that was where this whole thing started to come together. I reached out to a friend of mine that I usually would pray with. He lives in Lagos, and I was crying to him, and I was vulnerable to him, basically. And I will never forget one of the statements he made to me. He said, "Promise, God might just be taking you through a path so that tomorrow you can become an anchor point for people that are in this situation. I don't think this pain is a waste. I think God is taking you through a path, and it kind of makes sense to me because I was just looking for something to hold on to, something to just hold on to. I got tired of praying. I got tired of church. I was angry. Basically, I was angry, But guess what? The doctor called again. I said, I'm not giving up on you guys. One more try. One more try. One more try. I said, no, sir, I'm done. He said, no, one more try. God will bless Dr. Ise for me. He said, one more try. So we decided January of 2024. I had just come back from my father's burial, and the doctor said, one more try. Yeah, okay. So before January, we had done hysteroscopy, and they said, okay, they saw a fibroid right inside the womb, sitting the exact place where the child was supposed to sit. That they think that that's the cause for the previous miscarriages, and that he can't do it. That there's a specialist for that, and that they were going to refer us to the man. So when I sat with the man, and the man told me what the thing entailed, that if anything go wrong, they will have to take out my wife's womb. And I said, we won't do it. But my wife said, no, let's do it. I said, I won't do it. My wife said, babe, I will do it. Let's do it. So what I decided to do was not to tell anybody, so that if anything goes wrong, it's between the both of us. You understand? And we went in for that surgery. That was, I think that was the height for me. That was the breaking point for me, because I was there. It was just the both of us. When she went into the theater, when they brought her out, it was practically a dead body. There was no life. I had to join them to lift her to the bed, and at that point I couldn't take it. I broke down. I was crying like a baby, and the nurse and the doctor was like, be strong, just please. I said, man, I can't take it. I had to reach out to a friend of mine, and I told the guy where I was and what was happening. The guy rushed down and kept telling me, promise na man you be, promise na man you be. What? Promise na man. That was what the guy kept telling me. But as God will have it, the doctor called me into his office after the whole thing was done, and he said, your God is a miracle working God. That's all of the fears I had going into this surgery never came up. That this surgery was successful. Your wife is fine. And I was like, praise God. This was early December, thereabout, 2023. So we traveled for my dad's burial in January 2023. 2024, yes. 2024, we came back from the burial. After the procedure we had done the year before, I just had this confidence that this time it will work, since they said that was the issue. So we tried again. And this was the 6th IVF. We tried again and waited for 14 days to get the news positive. Lo and behold, big negative. So at this point, I said, you know what? We're done. Probably God doesn't want us to have children. So I said, you know what? Let's have a cry of a baby in this house. Let's adopt. Let's get into adoption. And my wife was shocked that I was the one talking about adoption. And she said that no, the promise was to Abraham that you will have your own seed from Sarah. Said, babe, I will have my children. I said, yes, I'm not saying you will not have your children, but let's just have a cry of a baby in this house. Let's adopt. It was a difficult moment. She didn't want to accept it, but I was just so sure that this could just be the game changer for us. Let's just have somebody in this house. We have so much love to give. Let's just pour out our love on somebody. And after so many back and forth, she didn't accept it. But with the intervention of a lot of people, family, I remember her grandmom calling and said we should take a child. My mom called and said, adopt a child. Her mom will call and say, adopt a child. If I remember one time my mom telling her that, are you not even glad that your husband is the one saying adopt a child? It's not rare. Please,
normally not.
Adopt a child. So when she finally agreed, we met a friend of ours that had adopted, and we started asking questions, and they linked us to the right channels. We saw this baby girl, 3 months old, and we knew this was the child. We named her and started, buying things and preparing for her. I remember one day I told my lawyer, and he said, "Are you done with your documentation?" I said, "No." He said, "Don't carry the child until you're done with your documentation." My wife was running around with documentation, ensuring that, we're so excited carrying this baby. On the week that we're going to carry this moon, my wife started telling me that she was feeling a certain kind of way. She was feeling somehow. She kept saying that she was feeling in a certain way, and in my mind I was like, anyhow way you like, feel. See this pikin, this pikin they carry am. We went to the motherless babies home, bought things, gave the children. So we had agreed on the day we were going to come and pick that baby. And just that day, we discovered that my wife was pregnant. So we became confused. Should we pick the baby? Should we leave the baby? At this point, the baby was almost getting to 4 months. 4 months and a new baby. How do we cope? So I reached out to my pastor's wife. This is what's happening. And she said, "Go and pick that baby." Everybody I called said, "Pick that baby." Everybody I called kept saying, "Go and pick that baby."
Probably an opener.
It's an opener. So, but one of our pastors now said, "No, let's hold on. I know that this baby is an opener, but have you thought of coping with 2 newborns at the same time? That we need to look at this thing." But to show that God was in this whole thing, by the time we decided to go pick this baby, we went to the motherless babies home. We made the shock of our lives. And the woman said, "We didn't come on time. There was another couple that had done their documentation."
Sorry, it was 4 p.m.
Yeah.
Then when we got there by like 4 p.m., she's like, "Did I tell you 4 p.m.? I said 7 a.m. And we're like, "No, you gave us 4
p.m. Yes. And she was like, there was somebody that had finished their documentation, and this was the baby they wanted. So meaning that the baby that they had showed us, we had named, we had started buying things for, somebody else carried the baby. So we told ourselves, that means God actually didn't want us to carry this baby. But because of the two miscarriages, there was fear. I kept insisting that let's carry another baby, just in case there's another miscarriage, and we just felt that, okay, this was just the right thing for us to do, So the pregnancy started progressing, and we told ourselves that we were not going to tell a soul. I remember one night I woke up to go and pray, and while I was in my balcony, I heard it clearly. "You did not bring this one. Your prayer will not sustain this one. Only the one who brought it can sustain it." Immediately I heard that, I went back inside, and my wife was wondering, they pray again? I said, "You see this?" I said, "You see this baby?" She said, "Yes." I said, "Nothing will happen to this baby. God brought this baby. This is the baby." So I went to see my pastor the following day, and my pastor repeated the same thing. He said, "This child is a proper child." So that was how the journey started. You can hear the baby crying. You can bring her now.
That's how the journey started. We went for the 9th week scan with fear, because remember the first 2 pregnancies, it was at week 9 that we discovered either baby was sac was growing, really wasn't growing, or there was no heartbeats basically. So we went for the scan. Don't point it at me and smile this time. He said, "Myomectomies, this one is growing and she's growing well." And that was how pregnancy progressed. We did the 12th week scan and on and on. But one thing was, I had one of the smoothest pregnancies anyone can think of. Having waited This was our 9th year now. So you think that, okay, because of age, because of time, this pregnancy will stress me. I went to work every single day. I was very strong. There was no moment of sickness, no moment of feeling down, nothing. It was a beautiful pregnancy. For one thing God also gave us, God concealed this pregnancy. You see me, you wouldn't know I'm pregnant. In fact, there was a point my husband would tell me that this baby will be small because this your tummy is tiny. And when I'm like, whether small, whether big, pregnancy is pregnancy. But whenever I go for a scan, the doctors will tell me your baby is tall, your baby is big, and your baby is active. But my tummy was small. I'm saying down to my colleagues, down to some of my friends, nobody knew I was pregnant except for the few people that we told. And then on and on and on and on and on, down to
the arrival of this baby girl. And the amazing thing that made us know that God was definitely in this pregnancy was that this baby arrived on the 9th day of the 9th month of the 9th year. Baby 999.
Hour, because she was born at past 9 or
Yeah, she came 9th hour. But the amazing thing is that she came on the 9th day in the 9th month of the 9th year. And she came strong, healthy, no issue. And this is a proof that God is faithful, basically. And so this entire video is to tell somebody out there who is trusting God for an experience like this that delay is not denied. God did it, and today I can't even remember the pain of 9 years. It's like everything vanished overnight. Each time I look at this girl, she just inspires a lot of gratitude from me. And so if you're out there and you're trusting God for a child, for a spouse, for anything, please don't lose hope. Some days may be quiet, you may not understand it, but remember that the root of a tree normally grows in the dark. Your wait is not a waste. Today, this testimony has bettered a book that called God in the Wait. It has bettered the ministry called Bloom Bunch. We have become a source of inspiration to people around us, to many. And so we had to record this testimony and share our experience to let you know that it doesn't matter how low you have gotten. God is in the wait. If you hold on long enough, you will see that it all makes sense at the end. This is our testimony, and we just hope it encourages someone out there. God has done us well. This is Jedida Kamarachukwuha. Her name is Grace, actually. Kamarachukwuha means the totality of God's grace. And so, at the appointed time, God brought this baby stressless, no pain, no issue, healthy, no complication, fast. You can see her. This is just about her 4th month, and she's looking this way. So the same God is rich unto all. And if you don't mind, we'll just say a word of prayer. Father, we thank you, and I stand in agreement with my wife, and we thank you for our brothers and our sisters that may be in this situation. We ask that you extend your hand of help to them. Give them a new meaning and come through for them. In Jesus' mighty name, we pray. Amen. We hope this blesses you and become like a source of encouragement to you. We'll see you some other time. Thank you so very much. Bye.